guys, today we're going to cover a topic that really isn't meant to inform in terms of like teach the use of it or anything like that. Like we get a lot of questions about things that are pretty heavy. Gotten questions about suicide. We get questions all the time about spirituality. And this one really, we get questions quite a bit about psychedelic use. So I have my notes here, and that's what I'm reading from. Not because I can't come up with these ideas, but there needs to be a balance with what I'm trying to offer you guys, and it's a point of perspective, not a point of education. I guess you're going to get educated on my personal sort of viewpoint on the things and why and the how and things like that. But also, my wife is here to give a lot of balance because you'll see that the psychedelic use has its real limitations, and there's a lot broader information out there that I would suggest that you look into outside of just a person's use, or because I know like in society right now there's a lot of people talking about this sort of stuff, and I've been at this now I guess since 2017. I guess we'll kind of go back to the history, but any initial thoughts?
I think one thing that might be a little bit beneficial for you guys to understand about Jeff's experiences and what you might find available now for yourself is you can go to a retreat or have a good experience or try different things because you're curious. Jeff used psychedelics in a form of treatment based on his life experiences and the severity of his life experiences. So I also want you guys to understand that we're an advocate of psychedelic use under the care of a physician, not necessarily going to a retreat just to kind of see what opens for you. I'm not necessarily against those things, but as far as the demographic that we reach out to and the people that Jeff trains, specifically the psychedelics that were chosen for him are used for therapeutic reasons, not for an experience.
In the kind of the same way like fitness has a bunch of different arms and angles to it. We have CrossFit, bodybuilding, powerlifting. We have sports specific training, all these sort of things, and psychedelics are kind of like in a sense of like it's good to survey all of those things and take stock in all of the value in each and try to eliminate the things that don't really make sense to you. So without that weird metaphor, I mean, there's a lot of things we can use to it, but just really my history of use, the first time I used it was in December of 2017. My first two times was with psilocybin mushrooms. And I guess my reaction or my debrief point to those two things is that, like Catherine said, I was in a state of mind. My why is that I had made a lot of decisions leading up to that point over the past 7 to 8 years where they weren't good, healthy decisions in terms of relationships, my opioid addictions, and my social, the people I hung out with, the people I spent time, the people that I went towards and was attracted to, because my life at the time was in a place of self-destruction and demise. It wasn't healthy, and I had someone really lovely in my life at that time, and I make sense of it now, but at the time, I met this young man who was a bit younger than me and seemed to be more put together than me and more open-minded. And I always felt like that was something that made me very uncomfortable. People that were very secure with themselves and not being some sort of ideology. And this particular person was very kind to me. He was extremely kind to my son and very honest. And this particular person said, "Hey, maybe you should try this." And because of his background and his history and who he was, I trusted it. And because I trusted him, I trusted the environment, the situation I was placed in. It was very therapeutic. It was not recreational at all. I was not taking it to have a good time, especially coming out of an opioid addiction where all I knew of was drugs were bad, and there was no good side of it, and there was no benefit, and everything was a gateway drug. And when I did psilocybin after the first time, it's hard to put words to it because it opened up an entire sort of social and spiritual vocabulary for me that just, I guess the way that I put it for me is the benefit was it removed willful volition. My willingness to be ignorant to things, whether it's social, it's religion, and just the way the things, like, I was just like, well, I'd rather try to discover the truth in all facets of information, knowledge, spirituality, or social dynamics than to just be like, I'm a Catholic, military, Republican, whatever I was. Like, that was all ideology to me. And I didn't lose all those beautiful things. I grew up being Catholic and being pro-American and being a military veteran and a service member. It didn't take that away from me. It just opened up my eyes and my heart to the, I guess, the richness or the depth that this beautiful world has to offer. And it just, there's a big doorway that opened up. I say metaphorically, like, imagine a doorway that opens up and it's this long hallway and there's just infinite doors off this hallway. And it just swung this door open of thoughts and ideas, and I just wanted to open up all these doors and like rediscover some things, you know? So I guess that's that. My reasons for use was I was seeking something really profound and therapeutic. And this person who had this experience that was profoundly therapeutic to him, that came from a place that I did, and I saw this joy and this happiness and the weight of the world he wasn't carrying, and I was called to want that experience, and that's for me is the big sort of idea behind a lot of this, was that I was very driven, but I was really closed-minded in a lot of things, and this really kind of opened, like I said, opened this door. It didn't resolve it. It wasn't the end state, but it's definitely opened my mind to, and my heart. It just really opened me up to love, honestly.
I want to piggyback off of something that you said. When somebody gets caught in their own suffering, meaning we're suffering from the thoughts or the ideas or our ego that has built us to be a certain way, psychedelic use can remove some of the self-judgment or the inner critic or the thoughts that keep us in this small, narrow-minded self, the little self, the one that's always judging, the one that's always criticizing. When that veil or when that judge is removed, you can see that there's so much more value and so much more expansive connection that you have with life itself and love itself. I will also mention that psychedelics, any one of them that you are curious about, the set and setting really matters, meaning the person there providing you care and space really, really matters, and also the setting, the place that you're in. If you're not comfortable, it's really, really challenging to let go of, and I mean, even naturally let go of some of those hang-ups that we have and don't even know that we have.
Yeah, I think that, like I said, there's that willful volition in me that was very good for me to be driven. I wanted to be this thing. I wanted to be a Navy SEAL. I wanted to be a baseball player. I wanted to be all these things I wanted, these desires. And and I was always super self-critical. If it didn't go exactly my way, it was a failure instead of some variety of good. And this really got me to focus on the more important things in life. It helped me. It gave me space. It gave me this initial first couple months. It gave me this real like awe and wonder of this world that on a daily, just basic stuff. Like, to be super honest, like, I had a hard time going to grocery stores, and in the checkout line, the person that's checking me out, even having small talk with that person really made me super uncomfortable. Those times where it's okay to be quiet or whatever, like I felt, and then after it was like, I would go to the grocery store, and on the checkout, I would ask people like, how are you doing? Like, no, really, like I was like trying to, like, I wasn't even trying, I just started caring more about people in general. And that was a big step where I just started noticing, like, the little kid that I grew up being, like my mom and my parents and now my wife are like, I get to be that authentic person without this real heavy self-judgment, and it allows me to navigate my day. It has helped me to navigate my days without that overbearing self-critical inner dialogue that I have, or that self-deprecating language that I used about myself and to myself. It really put that to bed for quite a while, and gave me space to work on not having that inner monologue and dialogue of hate of myself. I think that the big thing I want to say too is that I think I touched on is like the drawback to psychedelics is I think that psychedelics at large is painted as this final destination, this final solution, this you do it once and the world is going to be better and rosier and you'll never have. And I think that that's really misleading, because to maintain that disposition of the world is awesome and we got to keep doing better and growing and all these sort of things, there's another step in here that comes into how do we keep that? How do we have a daily practice of keeping that open? And that's what we're going to get to here in a second.
The other thing I'd like to mention too, Jeff is saying that the psychedelics is a doorway and the work actually happens after. Another thing too is that some people come out of an experience feeling disappointed because they had an expectation going in. And you have to understand, I'm not going to get into different psychedelics, but you've got to understand what that medicine is used for. Different psychedelics are used for different types of therapy. And setting an expectation or hoping for a certain experience isn't really a good way to go into it. And again, the work happens after the experience. So regardless of what happens during the psychedelic, time that you're in, it's the work afterwards, and not just that day. It's for the rest of your life type of work.
And it's not a humdrum, oh my God, I got to work at this. So like she had already alluded to it, my first two experiences were psilocybin. And then my next experience was ibogaine, clinical setting. And then it was 5-MeO DMT, clinical setting. Then the next couple times I did 5-MeO DMT again in a fairly clinical sort of setting. The setting was driven by us. It was private. It was all those sort of things that you want. The next time it was DMT and ketamine. That's the one. And again, it's like for me, each one of those was a step to healing, not because I just needed more. What I was doing wrong leading up to all of those things was thinking that the psychedelic experience is enough. I like to call myself at that time, all those experiences up until I did the 5-MeO DMT and the ketamine in a clinical setting with multiple physicians. I called myself, for sure, without a doubt, I was phony holy. I was around thinking I was better. I was still self-righteousness got a hold of me instead of healing. And until I had that last clinical setting where my wife was there, who could not hold me in judgment and keep me in this place of remember, you're not healed, so don't be self-righteous in that sense of healing. And I had someone literally there with me when I came out of this to get me grounded, to get me in a place to remember where I was at and what the goal was, because the psychedelics are very, very strong, and they themselves, because of their strength and their awe, you can kind of lose track on where you're at. And so for me, the guided therapy afterwards, and that's what we're going to get to now, is the guided therapy might come on different ways for you as an individual. But there needs to be a daily something in which you're referring back to your psychedelic experience, literally in thought and mind and body. We're going to get to the real reason, the real goodness of it. But the really beautiful thing is when you instill a daily practice, the awe of the experience can be maintained on a daily basis. Not going back to get high or whatever the height of the awe or the psycho. No, like, because it's profound, there is this memorable emotion attached to it, and you can root yourself in that memorable emotion on a daily basis. That is the practice. And that's not the doorway, that is the truth of it. And so, like, that's the guided therapy, and it can come in a bunch of ways.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the one that we choose, the one that I think is the most valuable for us, without question, is meditation, because, like I have written in here, the end state is sober meditation. It's a regular daily practice of that sober meditation, and that sober meditation is as profound on a regular basis as the psychedelics, especially if you pick up that sober meditation, that real meditation, on a daily practice immediately after those psychedelic experiences. It is the way. It's and that is what, for the last, since 2000, well, I guess 2017 was my first time. It was just right after COVID, when I did the 5-MeO or the ketamine DMT,
Mm-hmm.
right? So since COVID, essentially, till now, this has been my daily practice, or as regular as possible, and I can tap into that awe and that love and that kindness and that appreciation on a real regular basis.
I would say, more importantly than going through a psychedelic experience, having things set in place after that experience is probably more important. So you understand, hopefully, what meditation sort of feels like, or what you're getting before you go in, and then you can work on that practice afterwards. A lot of the clinics now make it mandatory for you to have regular therapy sessions after that, which also works. You can do therapy or meditation, but it does have to be on a regular basis. And that's really how you get through the stuff, or the things that are you're working on, or the things that potentially come up during an experience, or when you're in a clinical setting, you're there on purpose to work on something. So during the meditation, when you can go back to a positive experience from the psychedelic, your body, you're actually resetting your neurotransmitters to behave in a different way, so that you can look back on your experiences without having the self-judgment or the critic, or causing your own suffering through our own neurosis that we all do. We have this negative bias on ourselves, and we're kind of wired that way to be negative. And so having that veil removed from the psychedelic experience, and you practice it on a daily basis, you will literally change your mind. You are literally changing the way that you think.
Yeah, because that's what the mistakes I made, are the mistakes that I see people make, is not having this support structure, support whatever on the back end of it. Because what I experienced and what I see with guys going through psychedelic treatments is that, let's say they're trying to get away from alcoholism, or they're trying to get away from bad decisions and infidelities, or whatever it might be, right? Whatever it might be. Something that we know is not ideal for healthy and happy living. Well, say you go to this amazing retreat, it's 3 to 5 days, you have this amazing experience, like, you're super motivated, you're inspired, and you go home to the same thing that created the neurosis, the bad habits, the same friends, unfortunately sometimes the same spouses, the same blah. And what we end up seeing is that a large majority of people that go through these psychedelic experiences that do not have these things in place, within a short window of time, days, weeks, and months, we revert right back to the same person that drove us to wanting to get that experience. And by placing these support structures in place, specifically meditation, prayer, good friends, good fellowship, physical activity, right? Sunshine, all these sort of things that are valuable, that many of these retreats will talk about meditation, talk about good food, talk about fellowship, but it's your responsibility to put that in place when you return from these experiences, from these retreats, and so on. Because when you do that, when you have these things in place and these people in place, or something like this is a reflection of me, not a reflection of anyone else's choices. The friends that I had, my closest friends, people that if her and I were to get married before this time of psychedelics, those people Not a single one of those people are my friends anymore. Not because they're bad people, but because the lifestyle that they continue to lead or were leading when I got out of these treatments were not conducive to my healing. Everyone's free to live the way I want to live, and that's what I'm saying. It's really not about them. I had to finally go, okay, I love you, but when I'm around that environment, I start justifying that it's okay. And that was me that had to make a stop to that. And so I had to love those people at a distance and stay away from those environments. And I still, to this day, look back at those people with love. But I can't be around that type of environment. And so what now that I've instituted these practices and I've created a new life for myself with people that are supportive, all my friends are supportive of this. Now it began to bleed into everything of my life, not just I feel better. Now, like, my training is better. My coaching is so much better. Me being a freaking dad. Like, I was a good dad before, but son of a gun, man, I take real pride in that, being a good example. And for the first time in my life, I know I'm a good husband. Through and through. Like, yes, of course, we argue and things like that. I really, really, really care what she thinks to her core. Not because I'm supposed to, but because I want to. And like nothing is untouched in my life now, not because of psychedelics, but because they opened a door to me having space for the things that I value the most. God, my family, and the things that all sort of impact that and surround that. My profession, our business, the people I interact with. Like I'm not this angry person anymore. And, you know, of course I'm a light switch away from smashing stuff at times, but I'm in control for the first time in my life. I've never had this much control, not because I've been lobotomized, but because I'm in the moment aware of my behavior, you know? And I think that's the takeaway, is that ultimately that's what I was trying to do. These things that I felt hopeless in, I felt hopeless in being. How do I become a better father? How do I really hear my spouse, like really, really to the core of what she needs? I couldn't hear that before because of my internal dialogue was so self-deprecating. Because of the nature of I'm really driven, and I'm really critical of the outcome of my goals. But now I've learned that there's a balance there, and it's so freeing. It's so freeing. So I'm so thankful that I had the opportunity. I'm so thankful that I had people that cared enough about me to say, hey, Jeff, this might help you. And I mean this this might sound odd to your ears, but I am so thankful for the suffering that I put myself through, because it opened me up, because I was tired. I was so freaking tired of suffering. And psychedelics was a stepping stone, but not a solution. And I still look at it that way. I don't use it regularly because I have a regular practice of meditation and prayer, and I surround myself with good human beings that have my best interest in mind, that don't hold me critical of judgment of my bad decisions in the past. And that's a hard one to get past, when that's human nature. Like, I've made some mistakes, but man, that does not make up who I am at all, especially now. So that's my experience with psychedelics. I hope that you all research and look around if you're interested, not so much in what I say, because it's like anything else, is when you are the one that's making the decisions to make these life-changing experiences, you're going to own them. They can't be done for you. No one can go through the fire for you. And what my wife always said is, we're not going to go around this. You've got to go through it. And I'm so thankful that I was able to go through it.